Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing the mid-year Freakout Tag. Now I haven't done one of these since, I want to say before COVID, 2019 maybe. I think I stopped doing these because I wasn't reading as many books like by the time the middle of the year came, that I was just kind of like, I didn't have a wide selection to choose from to answer any of these prompts. But this year is a little bit different because as of the time I'm filming this, which is the 25th. Sure, that sounds about right. The 25th of June, I've read 31 books, which is a huge achievement for me. I think this year I'm gonna say I'm gonna at least make my goal of 50 books or 52. I can't remember if I put it at 50 or 52. And if I surpass it, that's even better. I think the most books I've read in a year since I've been doing the Goodreads challenge was 37 books. And right now I'm at 31. So we're almost there, and I'm actually really, really excited about getting to see how much I actually do read this year, because this has been a really great reading year for me, which is surprising. I think it's thanks to the audiobooks, even though I am realizing that as I'm reading them, I'm not as wholly paying attention to them and I'm missing things. So I'm trying to do a little bit less of that, or at least listen to an audiobook that I also have a physical copy of, because I did enjoy like reading along as I was listening. But anyway, we're gonna get into the tag. I honestly don't remember the original creators of this tag, so I apologize for that, but I will leave some links down below of other creators that have done it already. And I am totally doing a cheat sheet of this because I think there's nothing wrong with having notes. So when I made this list, I had only read 28 books. So I'm up to 31 now. So there might be slight changes, maybe. We'll see though as I go along. So the first prompt is the best book you've read so far this year. So definitely the one for this is going to be Don't Kiss the Bride by Carian. I listened to this on audio. I loved this book. This is an age gap marriage of convenience plot where we have our heroine who is in a bad situation. She is in a bad home life, and she is suffering from some medical issues and an eating disorder that needs attention, but she has no medical insurance. Her mom is pretty much useless. So, and then she runs into, I think Jude is the hero's name, who was working construction across the street from her high school. And they kind of strike up a friendship, and he sees that she needs help and he's in a position to help her. So he offers to marry her in order for her to get on his health insurance. And then because her home life is so shitty, that she moves in with him, and it's really good. They start as friends first. There's no, like, there is a decent sized age gap, but he's very respectful of that. They become friends first, and then of course later on things do get more serious. And ooh, what are you growling about? It's a fantastic book. I loved it. It was my first Carian book. Certainly will not be my last, so I highly recommend that one. Prompt number 2 is best sequel you've read so far. Now, the only sequels I've read so far are Convalescent and Reclaimed by Kandi Vale, which is the Slivered Souls trilogy. I listened to this on audio, and I was very pleasantly surprised by this series. It was a series that I had never really heard of at all before. I was just looking for something quick and short to listen to because they were only like 4 or 5 hour audiobooks. So I listened to these. I devoured them. They're like paranormally romance, but it's like the hero, I forget his name, Dolan, I think is what it is. He is I forget what exactly. I think he's a demon or something, or a shapeshifter. He's a hellhound shapeshifter, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that. He runs a very specific kind of sex club where it's like a BDSM sex club where I forget exactly what it is, but I know he has to feed off of like the pain of his partners, and that's how he kind of like sustains himself. And I guess if he feeds enough, gets enough of their pain, like he can take on their attributes or something. I don't know, it's a whole thing, but it was a really, really interesting series that I do definitely recommend. Okay, number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet. So The one that I actually do own already is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I actually have not read any of Emily Henry's books yet. I own them all. I started reading Beach Read like when it came out, and then I never finished it. So I am considering doing a reading vlog for all Emily Henry's books. I have read one of her YA books. A Million Junes, I think, is the one that she wrote. But I haven't read any of her adult, and I know that all her summer reads are like people are obsessed with, and I was so excited to get this. Still haven't read it yet. I also am really interested in reading My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. Again, I haven't read any of her stuff either. I do want to read It Happened One Summer, again, an older series or an older book, and Hook, Line, and Sinker is the one after that. And then My Killer Vacation just sounds super interesting. Okay, number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Now, I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to when books come out unless it's like, hey, oh, hey, it's release day, or I'm watching another booktuber's most anticipated things. I honestly don't really pay attention, but I have been aware. So these, I don't know if they are coming out in the later half of the year. There have been no official announcements of release dates. I just know they're in the works and they're coming. The first one being Motel by Penelope Douglas. I love Penelope Douglas, pretty much everything she writes. So I'm really excited to finally get to read that one. I know that she's been writing the sequel to the Fall Away series. I think Falls Boys just came out, and then I think Pirate Girls is the next one. That's a series I actually have not read yet, but I do have Bully up on my shelf to start reading at some point. And then this is another one that I was kind of like looking to see if there was a live recently where other booktubers were talking about this one, and no one really knew when the release date was, and that is Caution to the Wind by Giana Darling. This is the newest book in the Fallen Men series. I think it's book 6 or 7. I'm not 100% sure on that, but this was supposed to come out apparently in the spring of this year, so within like the last couple months, but it hasn't come out yet. So maybe it'll come out in the latter half of the year. I don't know, but that'll give me time to catch up on the series, so for when it does eventually come out. Number 5, biggest disappointment. Okay, so there are 2 for this. So the first one being The Whispering Dead by Darcy Coates. This is a book I actually started in October of last year and did not finish until March maybe. And I was really, the premise of this sounded really great. I love books that like paranormal. It's set in a cemetery. She's supposed to be able to hear ghosts, see ghosts. I mean, she does see ghosts, but like it just wasn't executed exactly as I was hoping it would. So it was a little bit of a disappointment. I ended up giving it 3 stars, I think. And then the other book was I Think I Might Need You by Christina C. Jones. This was a novella. Now, normally I'm one of those people that I love a surprise pregnancy or secret baby trope. This one had a surprise pregnancy trope that I wasn't a fan of. Just like, I didn't like the relationship between the characters. I didn't like how there was an ex in the picture, and like, I don't know, there was a whole thing that I just wasn't a fan of. I loved the first book in this series. Okay, number 6, biggest surprise. This is War Baby by K. Webster. Was a big surprise because I went into this thinking it was going to be one thing. I was thinking it was going to be more like kind of like Enthralled by Giana Darling, where it's just that she is kidnapped and sold into sex slavery. It's just going to be this whole thing about her being trained, and it was going to be a smutty good time. This was so much more than that. There was so much more involved than that, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I was obsessed, and I loved it, and I could not, like I said, could not put it down. The other one, which I really want to get a physical copy of, is Waking Olivia by Elizabeth O'Rourke. Again, not what I was expecting from this book at all. This had the opposite effect of as this one. Like, this one I expected it to be, this was dark, but this was, I expected it to be more like BDSM, smutty, dark, sexual stuff than it was. Waking Olivia went kind of the opposite direction without the whole smut part of it. There was really like almost no smut in this. But I expected it to be it's an age gap, a very small age gap between a college track star and her coach. Now the coach, she's like 21 and the coach is like 25 or 24. So there's not a big age gap like at all. but it's just the whole taboo part of it is their positions. Like he's technically like a teacher figure, mentor figure. But there was a dark element to this book that I did not expect going into it. So Olivia suffers night terrors, which cause her to sleep run, which is a whole cause for concern because she's a track star, and if she's running miles and miles at night, like it's making it difficult for her to perform at track meets and stuff. So, but the reason behind the night terrors, we get to see what these night terrors are, which is snippets of events in her past, and you're gradually get to learn what happened that was so traumatic that she's having these issues now. And it's like, it's dark. Like, it's darker than I ever thought it would be, and it's amazing. I'm so glad that I picked it up on a whim to read it. Like, I saw a couple people had really enjoyed it, gave it 5 stars, and I'm like, this is interesting. Like, I love a good age gap, I love a good taboo story, but that book was so much more than I expected it to be, and I am not disappointed at all. Okay, next is number 7, a new favorite author. I'm definitely gonna say this is gonna be Carian. Now, I only read one book by her, which was Don't Kiss the Bride. I did get the January February Mystic box where she was the featured author, so I do have this version of Torn, which is another age gap, and I think it's best friend's dad's best friend. I think it is. Yes, pseudo uncle, dad's best friend. Now, I think it was Jess from Peace Love Books was not a fan of this. She didn't like how the romance turned out. I'm still willing to give it a try. And this cover, the version of this is absolutely gorgeous. So I also have No Tomorrow in the special Mystic Box edition to read. And there was another book of hers that I wanted to read. And I can't at the moment remember what it is. But I'm really excited to read more by Carian because I absolutely adore Don't Kiss the Bride. It was obviously definitely think it'll be one of my favorite books of this year so far. Number 8 is Newest Fictional Crush. Okay. So the first one was going to be Ronan from the Boston Underground. I think it's Boston Underground? Boston Underworld series. I can't remember if it's Underground or Underworld. I know. So his book is number 2, Reaper, which I'm like 20 pages in, not even. I read the prologue, which is about 4 pages. But Ronan in the first book, Crow, I was obsessed. Like, as much as I enjoyed that first book, I was salivating to get the Ronan and Sasha story, which is in Reaper. Now, again, I haven't read this book, but I loved Ronan so much in Crow, and the way he was stuck pretty much being a glorified babysitter slash bodyguard for our heroine in that book. What's her name? Mac, I think. Mackenzie. The broody hitman for the Irish mafia. I love it. I love it. I love him. And the things that he was doing in the background for Sasha. Yes, I love it. I love it. Okay, and then I have a little asterisk here next to Alexander from Annie's Song. Now, Annie's Song is one of the books that I read recently after I had already done this whole thing. I loved Alex. He's kind of the opposite of Ronan, in that Ronan is like the dark, I'll kill you if you touch her sort of hero, and Alex is the cinnamon roll hero. I loved him. I know there were, during the live show, because Annie's Song was the, was it Ravished by Romance? Historical Hellions. I don't remember which book club they were reading it for this month, but I happened to pick it up. I did it for a video about reading booktubers' favorite historicals, and this was Lacey, I believe, from Lacey Book Lovers, one of her favorites. So I picked it up to read it, not realizing at the time that it was also picked for their book club. So I read it. A lot of people in that live show didn't enjoy it as much as I did. I loved it. I loved Alex as a hero, and I don't know if that might not be, this might be going up before then, not 100% sure, but if that vlog is up before this one, I will link that up in the cards or wherever for you to get more in, like, real-time in-depth thoughts about the book, but I loved Alex so much. He was such a sweetheart. He just wanted to do what was best for Annie, and that, you gotta watch that vlog. If it's not out yet, just wait for it. I gush so much in the beginning of that vlog, and I love him. I love him so much. So then newest favorite character. This was a hard one because I don't know, like, this was hard for me to do, but I had to say one of the more fun characters was, I don't know her name. I don't think her name is revealed yet in the series, because I only read the first book, and that is the female protagonist from Four Psychos by Christy Cunning. That, she's like a ghost, and she's stuck living in this house with these four guys, and like, if she leaves them for too long or is apart from them for too long, she starts to lose like her footing in like the living world and goes into like the ether and like this dark blackness, and she's like doesn't want to be there. But she's such an interesting and fun character. And then something happens in that book where she has to save them from being like pretty much murdered, and she's suddenly able to touch them, and they are able to realize that she's there, because they didn't know she was there this entire 2-3 years that she's been kind of hovering around and living in the house with them and just spying on them. And now all of a sudden, like, they can hear her and see her, and even once in a while, like, she'll wake up and like be tangible, like they can touch her, and she's just a super interesting character. And they have to go to hell. I think they're demon hunters or something. They have to go to hell for like these trials, and she goes with them and helps them, and just she's such a cool character and interesting character. I do need to read more in that series. I think I've been listening to it on audio, and my library has books. I think it doesn't have book 3. It has 2 and 4. I don't know why it doesn't have a third one, so I'll have to figure out a different way to listen to that one. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. So I haven't really cried that I can recall at this point. I'll give books that have like caused a physical reaction. So the first one being Twisted Loyalties by Cora Reilly. I mentioned this in the vlog where I read this one, that a lot of the things that happened in this book like gave me, like, physically made my heart hurt. And that's when I know it's a really hard-hitting, profound book that I'm reading, that I get a physical reaction out of it. So Twisted Loyalties was one, and then the other one was This Is War Baby. This book just, I didn't cry, but it made my heart hurt so much, especially when we get the flashbacks of what happened to Warren when he's like, I don't know if he's a kid or like a young teenager, what happens to him and why he is the way he is. It made my heart hurt. I don't even know what else to say about it. Number 11, a book that made you happy. I mean, most books make me happy, but one that like made me like smile and actually laugh out loud. The first one being I Think I Might Love You by Christina C. Jones, which is the first book of the Brown Sister. No, not the Brown Sisters. Brown Sisters is Talia Hibbert. The Love Sisters series. The one, the opposite one being one of my disappointing reads of the year, of the year so far. But this one was one of my favorites. I laughed out loud. There is a farting scene that I was like, I had to like I was like texting people like, you won't believe what was just happening in this book I'm listening to. And it made me laugh out loud. And then I'm going to put a little asterisk beside that, because also I'm currently in the middle of reading Seyash the Marquess by Tessa Dare. And that book is also a fun time, I have to say. I have giggled a few times at one of the characters. I can't remember what his name is. It's Rafe's friend that he brings with him, who pretends he's like an esquire, and he's not really. He's like his trainer. So funny. Number 12, most beautiful book you bought or acquired. I mean, I was kind of going through to see what I bought so far this year, because I've gotten a lot of books. And I have to say that I think Cooked by Emily McIntyre is one of my favorite covers that I've gotten so far. Ever since, even before I knew what this book was about, I would see it pop up on my Amazon like recommendations, and I'm like if I didn't know, I know what it's about now. It's like a Captain Hook retelling, but if I didn't know what it was about, this would have been a cover buy. I would have bought this specifically just to have the cover because it's beautiful and I love it. Okay, and our final question is books to read by the end of the year. I have quite a few of these. The first one being I want to catch up on the Fallen Men series. I do only have the first book, Lessons in Corruption, but I do want to hopefully get caught up before the new one comes out, Caution to the Wind, if and when, we don't know if it is. I want to finally read Hero by Lauren Rowe. This is a big chunk of a book, but this is the Morgan Brothers. There's so many like brother-sister series. Morgan Brothers series. I just recently saw Captain pop up on Pengo Books for sale, so I think that's the one after this. So I'm gonna have to look into that. Also on my list of things to read this year, Credence by Penelope Douglas. No, I have not read it yet, even though I said I love everything Penelope Douglas writes. So I am just so excited to read this book that I'm like almost don't want to read it because I don't want the experience to be over, if that makes sense. I may do a reading vlog for this. I don't know, it's kind of like an outdated book at this point, but I'm just super excited to finally get to read this one. I also want to finish the Boston Underworld series. I do have Reaper and I have the third book, Ghost. So, and I think there's 6 books in the series, so I still have quite a few of those to get through. I want to finish the Camorra Chronicles. I still have the whole series of those to get through. I've only read the first one. I do want to read some more of my Book of the Month books. As you can see, if you see here, like there are so many of these that I haven't read yet. I get a Book of the Month almost every month, not quite. Sometimes I'll skip a month, but I don't read them as in the month that I get them from, so I'm gonna have to start trying to go through my backlist and get some of those read. And I really want to read some more historical romance. I've been having a really good time with reading them the past like few weeks from doing this vlog that I was doing with reading Booktuber's favorite historicals. So I'm hoping to get more of those read this year. I especially want to read more Lauren Heath. There's a Lauren Heath series. I can't remember the name of the series right now, but it has, I think, Duke Takes All and oh my gosh, the Viscount and the Vixen, like that series. I really want to read that series. And then I also want to read some more thrillers. I have thrillers on my shelf. I have No Exit by Taylor Adams I still have to read. I have a bunch of Lucy Foley that I still have to read, The Paris Apartments and The Guest List. And I have like The Hacienda by Isabel Crane, which I think is more of a horror. I don't know. And I have Breathless by Amy McCulloch. Like I have a lot of Book of the Month books they want to read that are like more thrillery sort of books, more thrilly horror stuff. Like I have Plain Bad Heroines and more Darcy Coates to read, and like there's just a lot that I really want to expand upon. So I'm hoping that I can get through those this year. I don't know, I'm on like a really good reading groove right now. I'm like 7 books ahead of schedule. I'm on track. I'm way beyond on track to finish my goal for the year. So I'm hoping that I can... Sorry, my camera stops filming after 30 minutes and I don't know if there's a way I can fix that setting so it doesn't do that. But as I was saying, I'm hoping that I can, all these books that I mentioned in this, I'm hoping that I can actually, because they're all books that I'm really, really excited to read. And when I'm really excited to read something, I'm more inclined to read it. Like some other books that I didn't put on this list that are recently come on my radar are Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. I want to try some Michelle Hurd books. I think is some of hers. Sophie Lark is also on my list of authors I want to try. And there's just so many books that I am really, really, really excited to read, but I know like I can't read a million at one time. And that's where I kind of get overwhelmed because there's so many things on my radar that I want to get to and I want to read, but like I know I'm not gonna have time to do it. and then I get discouraged, and then I just don't read anything, and then I just get even more upset. So I'm just gonna try to just keep reading one book after the other. If I get to it, I get to it. And if I want to read something right sooner than another one, then I'll read it. That's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!